Excel is the most used business application across all companies. I'm Jensen, a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. Let's get started. Our department receives data in an Excel sheet and needs to do several calculations afterward. We will create a project folder on our desktop. So anywhere on your desktop, right-click, New, Folder. We will call it Project. Then we will download the Excel book to it. Go to the course page. The link is in the description below. Scroll a little bit down to course materials. Here you will find candy.xlsx. Right-click, save link as, and place it inside the project folder. So I double-click it here, and I'll click Save. Let's go inspect the data first. So I open up the project folder. Then I'll open up the candy.xlsx. This is the Excel sheet as our department received it. We have a sheet called Products, and we have 4 columns. Product, which is our products, it's candies, the cost to produce, and the price sold. Here I want to, for each row, I want to say price minus cost equals profit. Then create a profit column here in between the price and units sold and put that number in it. Then I also want to create a total profit column here after the units sold, and that is profit times unit sold. Later on, I want to do some more advanced stuff, that is making the headers bold. I also want to do conditional formatting, that is paint the cells in green, yellow, and red based on their values. Finally, I want to see if it works with 100 rows as well. Of course it will. We will use the native Excel actions in Power Automate Desktop, but I'll also show you how you can use VBA and VBScript to make more efficient workflows. Close down your Excel book again and close this. Remember, we copied the path to this project folder. In case you didn't do, simply just Shift and right-click, Copy as Path. Go to Power Automate Desktop. Create a new flow. I will call mine Excel, and we will click Create. Find a set variable. We will create the project path as a variable. So we drag in the set variable, and we will call it project path like this. Control V in value that will paste in the path. I'll delete the 2 quotation marks in the start and in the end. I'll click Save. To create the Excel instance, we go up to Actions, find a Lawrence Excel, and drag it in. We can open a blank document. We will do that if it's a log that we're trying to create, but since we are trying to edit the data that we already have, we will open up the following document. The document path. Click this little X out here. Choose the project path. This is only the main folder. So I'll have it backward slash, and then I'll say candy.xlsx. The reason why we do it is because this project folder can move. For example, if we move this flow into production on another computer or a server, it will definitely not be placed on Anders Jensen's computer and not on the desktop. We'd only place this project folder on our desktop now because it's easy to work with. So always create a variable for path that can change. We will not make it visible. It's fun in the beginning to see the robot work in the Excel sheet, but it hurts performance a bit. We will not open it as read-only. We will only do that when we don't have to write data back to the Excel instance. Now we do, so we click Save. One thing that is important is to close the Excel instance again. Otherwise, Power Automate Desktop can and will lock this Excel book until you have restarted your computer. For now, we will just refer to the Excel instance that got created up here in the Lawrence Excel. We will not save the document, we will later. So we click Save. Try to run the robot again. Just see that you can launch and close it without any problems. That's it, it worked fine. Let's read the Excel data. One thing that we want to do is let's go back to our Excel book here in the project folder. double click to open it, is that per default OneDrive syncs here, this autosave on, we will not have it on. And that is because when we work with this instance, we will get some unwanted data if we choose auto sync on. So have it ticked off. Now save it and we will exit again and go back to Power Automate Desktop. So we want to read the Excel data. So find a read from Excel worksheet and drag it in between launch and close. We will again read from the Excel instance. We can retrieve a single cell, but we want to say all available values from worksheet. In advanced, first line of range contain column names. Yes, we have column names in our data, so check that. The variables produced is called Excel data. That is a data table. Always rename your variables so it shows what data you have in them. Since we have a Excel data products, this will say we got products in it. And I click save. Then it's much more easy to maintain this robot if you or your colleague come back to it and see just this action. We don't need to open or run and inspect. Try to run it again and just inspect that you can actually read the data into a data table. Over here we see the Excel data products. Double click to open it. Here we have our data. That is the 10 rows. What I want to pay close attention to is that it is a data table. We have our headers here and then we have our rows. But look, the first row that is index 0, that is because data tables are 0 indexed. So when we want to refer to the first row, we say row 0. The second row is row 1 and so forth. It's just taking a few seconds to comprehend because we are used to saying that the first element is obviously index 1, but it's not like that in programming. So a data table is 0 indexed. Click close. So now it works, we can read from it, but let me go into my Excel book again. Say I move to another sheet, that could be the Anders Jensen org sheet. I'll save it here and I'll exit it. Try to run the robot once more. So here we are launching, we are reading from Excel worksheet and we're closing. If I go over to Excel data products and double click, look, we read a sheet that we did not want to. That is because Power Automate Desktop reads the last active sheet. So here's a problem. It's not a problem now because imagine that we did some calculations on the products. It will just fail here. That will be the least of the problems. Of course, it's annoying when the robot fails, but imagine that two sheets look like each other. That might be data from different years or different weeks. Then it will be a disaster if our robot start calculating and might put out some data for use later on. We will have been making a huge mistake. So we want to combat this. Close here. Go up and find a set variable. Drag it in beneath the first set variable. We will call this active sheet. And the sheet that we want to use is the products. Then we'll click save. Now go up and find a set active Excel worksheet. We will do it after the launch and before we read. So here we want to specify, we want to read this product sheet and then we will read it. So we are in the Excel instance. We want to activate a worksheet with a name and we will use the variable that we created up here. So active sheet, double click it. There you go. We could of course have put in products here, but we want to use this variable a little bit later in the flow, so we are doing it like that. It will also make it easy to change the sheet by just changing the value of this variable. Try to run it again and see that we can actually get the correct data now and we are not having the Anders Jensen org. Over in Excel data products. There you go, we now have our candy once more. Click close. Now we want to calculate the profit. That was, let me just open up the data once more. That was in the products. I want to put in a profit column right here in between. And then I want to say price minus cost for each one of these rows and have it here. This means that we want to insert a column to the left of units sold, that is to the left of column 4, and it looks like this. So I close here, go to Power Automate Desktop, go up into Actions, and then find and insert column to Excel worksheet. We will have it after the read from Excel worksheet. So again, we use the Excel instance, and then here in column, that is, I need to give the index of the column that I will insert a column to the left of, and that was column index 4. When we talk columns, we can also use the letters. So if you prefer that, we can also write in D, and we click Save. So right now, this will insert a column to the Excel worksheet. Now we just need to save the Excel data. We will not overwrite the original data, but let's create a new Excel book where we can save the data to. So open up the Close Excel. And so right now we are not saving. So I click this drop down and then I save document as. Then in the document path, click this X, double click the project path. Then I want to say a backward slash, and I can, for example, say output.xlsx like this. Then I click save. Try to run your robot once more. This will only insert a column to column D. It will be a blank column, but it is nice to see that we can actually do it. So I open up the output again. There you go. We now came a little bit longer. Now I need a header here, and I want to do these calculations. So close down this again. Go back to Power Automate Desktop. Let's do the results first. So right now I want to iterate through our data table. That will be the Excel data products. I want to take each row one by one. And then I want to say price minus cost and put it inside the newly created column. It looks like this. To iterate through a data table, we will have a for each. A for each loops a collection from start to finish, and then it's finished. So after the insert column to Excel worksheet, we have our for each. Here we will loop the Excel data products. So go double click that. I will say store into current product like this. I'll click save. Now for each one of the rows, I can refer to that row by referring to the current product once we are iterating through it. We need to convert this text from our data table into a number in order to do the calculations. So go up to Actions and find a convert text to number and drag it inside the for each. Here I'll refer to the current product. So I'll click this X, double click the current product. I want to take my price first, and here I can refer to the actual header of that price column. That will be price. So in hard brackets, single quotation marks, we will have in the price. So this is the text to convert. The variable is produced, let's call it actual price like this. We'll click save. We also want to do the same with cost. And here I can mark this convert text to number, Control C, Control V. Now we have two identical. Move into the second one by double clicking it. Here we need to change the price to cost, and we also change it down here. You could of course make a brand new convert text to number and fill in these things, but here we saved a few keyboard clicks. We like that since we are lazy as automation developers. Click save here. Now we have converted it. We can do the calculation, but first we need a helping variable. So we will find a set variable and drag it in before the for each. This helping variable will help us keeping track of where we at. So because there's no link between the Excel data products, the data table, and the Excel actual data, we only read it into this data table and then the link is broken. So we need to establish that link. And that is, we start here in index 0, but that is row 2 in the Excel sheet, because the first row in the Excel sheet, that is headers. And then our data starts in 2. So I go up here. We'll call this helping variable row number. We will start in 2 since that is the Excel row that we're starting the data in. We'll click Save. Then we know for each one of these iterations, we are moving one row below in our data. So I'll have another set variable here, and I'll say row number equals to whatever the row number is. Do this. We will add 1 to it by saying +1 inside these percentage sign. So now we have a tracker here. Let's write in the profit. Go up to Actions, find a Write to Excel worksheet, and drag it in. It's very important that you drag it in before the set variable inside the for each. So between the convert text to number and before the set variable. The value to write. Now we will do our calculation, and that is price minus cost. So we will have the price, then inside these percentage sign, and that is because when we do our code blocks, here it's a calculation, we need to do it inside the percentage signs. Click the X here and double click the cost. We will only need percentage sign in the start and in the end, so I'll delete this. I'll delete this. So this is our profit. We will do it for each one of these rows that we're iterating through. Where do we want to write it? I want to write it to a specified cell. That will be column D. That was the place of the newly created column. Then we also have a row. And here we start with row 2. So I've just find the row number variable like this. That's the reason why we created it. Then we click Save. Try to run the robot once more. So now we are doing the exact same thing as before, but now we just have some profit data into column D. We're also saving the data like before. That's it. Move out to your Excel book called output.xlsx. There you go. We now have our profit, which is the price minus cost. We still need a header, but that's the least of it. So close the Excel again, move back to Power Automate Desktop. We will write in the header. We will only do it once. So we will not have it inside our for each, but we will have it before. And I'll go up here, I'll find a Write to Excel worksheet, and I'll drag it in after the insert column to Excel worksheet. So the value to write, we will just hard code in profit, unspecified cell, that is fine. That will be in D, and the row will be 1, that is the headers row. So if we put it here, that will be kind of redundant because then we will do it as many times as we have rows in this Excel data products. That is unnecessary. Try to run the robot again. And yes, we tested a lot. That's because we want to see that each step works, and then we proceed. Imagine that we build a full robot without testing, and then we realize that something is wrong. That is not beneficial. So now I go out here, open up the output. There you go. We have now done the profit column. Now we need to have this column here, that is the total profit. That will be units sold times profit. Let's go create that. So we go back, find another convert text to number. So I'll go up here, convert text to number here, and drag it in below the first two ones. So the text to convert, and now again we could be lazy, but let's just write it here. So that'll be the current product. And then we will have this hard bracket, single quotation marks, and we will say we want whatever is in the units sold like this. We want to save it into a unit sold. Here you need to have no spaces in. We cannot have spaces in variables. So this one is called units sold. Then you'll click Save. So now we will insert another column. I can just copy it here, Control C, Control V. I'll move in. Now we will place it to the left of column F. That is because we already inserted one column. We will click Save, and we can do our calculation. You can also write the header. And again, I just copy these things because we are extremely lazy. So I press Control C here, and I press Control V. When I say we are extremely lazy, that is just one side of the story, the funny one. But it's actually just to make the minimum of errors. And of course, we want to increase the development speed. Not that it's the most important parameter, but it's still a parameter. So I go in here. Where do I want to write? Now it's F1 and I want to write total profit instead like this. I'll click save. Then we can do the calculation down here. So this is not a thing to copy right now. I'll just make a new one. There might be limits to our laziness. So we have our write to Excel worksheet. What do I need to write? Well, I need to write in the profit times units sold. And since we are not having the profit directly here, we have it as price minus cost. We will just do this calculation here. So we'll have the price, then we'll say minus, then we'll say cost. Like this. So we want to calculate this one first. So we place it inside parameters. This is just simple math. Then we will say times. And you can see I place spaces in between these operators. Those will be ignored at runtime. Then we will say times, and we'll have the units sold. Remember to move the percentage sign like this. You could make a case for, since we are now using this price minus cost a couple of times, we could create a variable for that, but for now it's good. Then we will say, where do I want to write it to? I will write it into column F, and again we will use the row number. So scroll a little bit down, double click the row number, and click save. Before we run and inspect it, you can go down here to run delay. The run delay, that is the delay between each one of these actions. It's there for a reason when we develop. It's only here when we run our robots from the actual flow overview here. It's not there, and if we run it from the cloud, it's not there either. This is just to see what's going on, but try to make this one, then this will go much faster. Do click run, and now we will see that everything works. Now you can see it runs extremely fast. We will close the Excel. Let's go inspect the data. I go into the output. There you go. We also have a total profit column now, which is simply just profit times units sold. One thing that I want to do is to resize these columns. You can see here we only have some of the names here, and the total profit is also a little bit, it's not wide enough, this column. So let's go fix that. I'll click this X and I'll go back to Power Automate Desktop. Here I only need to do it once, and that is after we write all this data, I will have a resize column rows. So I'll search for a resize column rows in Excel worksheet, drag it in after the end. The Excel instance is still the Excel instance. I want to resize a column. I will choose all available, and I will choose auto fit. That is, we'll fit the column width to the data in it. So I'll click save. Try to run it once more. Again, we will do it quite quickly because we have set the run delay to 1. That's it. One thing I'll also say, remember to save your flows by clicking save here. Power Automate Desktop will not have an auto save within. That's it. Let's go inspect the data in output. There you go. We now have auto fit on. You could also have specified that you only want it in product, for example, but let's stick with this. For now, we go back to Power Automate Desktop. Right now, each time our robot runs, then this output file will get overwritten. I want to do dynamic file naming. So for each run, we will produce one output file. We'll go back here. Scroll all the way up. Find a get current date and time and drag it in before the launch Excel and after the two set variables. Here we will just get the current date and time, and the intuition here is that we want to use it in the file naming. So the variables produced is called current date time. I'll click save. I'll need to convert this to a text, and that is so I can use it in the file naming. So find a convert date time to text and drag it in here. The date time to convert, that will be the current date time. Click this X, current date time. The format to use, we will use a custom format so we can specify exactly what we want. I want the year first, 4 Ys, and that is because we will take the years, then the month and the days. That is because we make it sortable. Since this robot is probably running many times a day, I also want to get the time within. Take 20-hour format, that's more easily sortable. So hour, minutes, seconds. And you can easily skip some of this, or if you want, like you can have all sorts of separators in. I like it like this. It's easily sortable. We will save this variable into a formatted datetime variable. Click Save. Now we will use this formatted datetime down here in the Close Excel. So I open that. In front of the output, click this little X here. Double click the formatted datetime. Then let's just have an underscore. That's just for the visuals. So we separate the actual dynamic date with the output.xlsx. Click Save. Run your robot once more. Now we have dynamic file naming once this robot finishes. So again, we add nice things to our robot step by step. And the data is obviously still the same. I also want to make the headers bold, and we want to do some conditional formatting over here to the profit column. And the formatting I want to do here is that if the total profit is less than 70, I want to paint it red. If it's between 70 included and less than 100, I want to paint it yellow. Above or equal to 100, it should be green. So what this is that it's actually impossible to make natively in Power Automate Desktop. And here we can either use VBA or VBScript. I want to show you both because this is so powerful for your flows. Let me close this data again. Open up the original data. Here it's candy.xlsx. If you have a developer tab here, you don't need to follow the next step to activate it. In case you don't have it, let's just activate it. Go to Files here. Then we need to find Options. In case you don't find the options, you just need to click More and then Options. So click Options here. Customize ribbon. Go over here, scroll a little bit down, and here you find the developer. It looks like this. If you don't have it, simply just mark it, click OK, and you find it up here. Then we need to go to Developer, click Visual Basic. So what we're doing now is to create a little bit of code here in our Excel book that we can use with our robot. So here you'll say right-click, Insert Module. Here our code goes in, and don't worry, you don't need to write it. I already did it for you. So go to the course page, scroll a little bit down. Up here in VBA code for the lesson, I've created the VBA. VBA is Visual Basic for applications. What this does is that it's generally just make the headers bold, and then we color the cells based on these conditions that we set up. Copy it up here. Go back to your Excel, simply just press Ctrl V to paste it in. This little VBA macro is called Format Data. That is the name up here. So that is important to remember because we will use it in Power Automate Desktop. Now go click Save here. It will give you a warning. It says that if you continue by saying yes, this will be a macro-free workbook. We are not interested in that because we created this macro. So click No. Now it's asked you to save it. And here you need to go down to Save as Type and choose Excel Macro Enabled Workbook. That is *.xlsm, like this. So now it's called candy.xlsm and not candy.xlsx. Just say Save. You can exit this one here because we stored the actual macro in it. So I can close it. Then we need to call it here in Power Automate Desktop. So right after all of this has happened, we want to call the macro. So say run Excel macro and drag it in here. The macro that was called format data, remember? Then we'll click Save. We also need to say, so now we run it, but we also need to say up here in the Lawrence Excel, we'll need to say we want to use not the Excel candy.xlsx, but candy.xlsm. That was the workbook where we have our macro in. Go into advanced here. Take the nest under new Excel process, scroll a little bit down and choose load add-ins and macros. Click save. Now try to run your robot and you will see the magic happens in a few seconds. In case you like these videos, please give it a thumbs up. That will really help me a lot. So now here we have this output, which was this here. Double click to open it. There you go. We now have bold headers, but we also have color coded after our scheme. That is, if it's bigger than 100, it will be green. If it's very low, lower than 70, it will be red, otherwise yellow. So using a macro is very clever when the native Power Automate desktop solution is not enough. But it still needs to go inside an Excel book, and that can limit it a bit. What we can do instead, let me close this and scroll to this VBScript for the lesson on the course page. Here I created a VBScript. This can run natively in our flow. It doesn't need to run in an Excel book. I just need to specify the path to my Excel book, and I need to specify the sheet. Then it does all the same thing. It paints the headers bold, and it also colors the cells based on our condition. So when I say this is smarter, of course, if you are very good in VBA and don't know VBScript, although those are similar, you should obviously go with VBA. Also, if your colleagues are skilled in those, stick here. But I recommend you to learn VBScript. You're more than welcome to copy this. So we do that copy here, but it's easily understandable. I also made comments. Then we go back to Power Automate Desktop. So what I want to do here is that I want to move into Lawrence Excel. We will just need to read the original one without the macro. So we will say candy.xlsx. I'll also go down to advanced. I'll untick this nest under new Excel process. I'll click save. Scroll further down. The run Excel macro, I don't need that anymore, so I'll disable it. Then we can run a VBScript. We already searched for run, that was the run Excel macro, and up here is the VBScript. Make sure you put it in after the close Excel. But that is, after we made all our data, we can run it. And that is because we need this path here, which we will only get in the end of the flow. So we cannot place it here. That will not work. So here I'll put in Control V to put in the actual code. Then I just need to say it's not sheet 1. So I will delete this. And that's why we created the active sheet variable. So make sure your mouse blinks inside these two quotation marks. Go over to this X. Scroll up, double click the active sheet. Now we're using this variable. We will also use the path to our Excel worksheet. And that is the easiest thing to do, is to click save, go into close Excel, copy it from here. Then we know we get the correct one. Go into the run VBScript again, and let me just maximize it a bit. Delete all this inside these two quotation marks. Remember to keep the quotation marks. Press Control V. We'll have it here. We'll click save. Try to run it once more and see that this actually works. And now we are independent of a script inside an Excel book. So that's it. Let's go to our new one here. That one is this. There you go. It did the same thing. Now let's put it to the test and see that we can actually also do 100 rows. That will be this sheet. We just need to change the active sheet to products 100. I'll close it here. Move in here. Scroll up. In the active sheet, I'll just say products 100. As you can see here, it gets a little bit easier because now we are, by using this variable, because we're using it here, and we're also using it in the script. Try to run it once more. It will go quite fast, and although we don't see it, it's quite satisfying seeing it working it through. You can see the row number out to the right. It says row number 40. We need to tick up to row number 101. So it's almost there. And that's it. Run the VBA script. Remember to subscribe to the channel to get more of these nice things. Then we'll click minimize. Let's open it here. Now we worked within the products 100. There you go. That's how easy it is to use Excel with Power Automate Desktop. Network and solve Power Automate problems with more than 6,000 developers by joining the I Love Automation Discord community. The next lesson is right here.